Golan Heights, a favorite spot for Israeli hang gliders. What would happen if they were enemy planes? This is not a hypothetical question. During the painful years in Israel's history when the Syrian army was positioned on the Golan Heights, artillery, tank, and sniper attacks were part of daily reality. This is how Israelis saw the Golan until 1967. And this is how Syrians saw Israel. Massive Syrian forces dominated the Israelis below and fired at civilians and farmers at will. This cannon is a grim reminder of the Syrians' overwhelming military advantage until the 1967 Six-Day War. A simple machine gun like this was fired with deadly accuracy at Kibbutz Ein Gev, only a few hundred yards below the Syrian positions. Joel Scheinfeld lives in Kfar Harub, where the heights rise sharply. Even now, the violent days of the past are uppermost in his mind.
This point was the center of the Syrian Southern Command from the period from 1948 to 1967. Today, my children live in the children's houses here on the kibbutz in the same place where there was once the Syrian army camp. The feeling of security for them being here is much better for us today than the fact of the children of Ein Gev, who slept in bomb shelters from 1948 to 1967 from the bombing that they received from Kfar Harub at that time. But the fact that we're here, instead of being down in the valley below, presents Israel with the opportunity to look into Damascus and not let the Syrians look down into our homes.
When the Syrians controlled the Golan, they were able to dominate the entire width of northern Israel, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. This is the strategic advantage offered by the Golan Heights. Northern Israel, dominated by the Golan, includes the Hula and Jordan valleys, Israel's breadbasket, only a few hundred yards from former Syrian positions. The Sea of Galilee is even closer, and the Syrians posed a constant threat to tourists, fishermen, and residents of the entire Tiberias area. From the heights of the northern Golan, the Syrians were able to fire at will on kibbutzim and moshavim in the Galilee, as well as on thousands of civilians living in such northern towns as Tzfat and Kiryat Shmona. They were within range of vital industrial centers. The Syrians also posed a constant threat to more distant regions, including the city of Haifa, which boasts Israel's largest seaport and industrial area.
But you saw in the Gulf War that no matter how many bombs were dropped from the air and how many missiles were launched at the Iraqi army, without ground action, you cannot win a war. And that's where the importance of the Golan Heights comes in. It is a fact that the biggest army that we're facing is the Syrian army. And if they have that crucial piece of land on top of the Galilee, then they can penetrate with ground forces. And if we sit on top of that high ground, then it becomes a lot tougher for them.
This field at Kibbutz Tel Katsir was only 200 yards from the Syrian positions. This is an actual sketch made by a Syrian soldier during an artillery bombardment. And these are the devastating results. 1967 Six-Day War, Israel responded to a Syrian attack and captured the Golan Heights. A 19-year-long nightmare came to an end. For the first time in their lives, the residents of Kibbutz Tel Katsir and the Galilee discovered the meaning of security. Today, bomb shelters have become playgrounds for children who do not remember why they were built or needed. Instead of threatening death, the Golan Heights now ensure Israel's security. They are a strategic necessity. In northern Israel, leading a normal life is no longer impossible. While most of the Golan Heights range between 1,800 and 2,700 feet high, the northernmost part reaches an altitude of 6,000 feet, by far the highest place in Israel.
I think the fact that we are on top allows us not only to safeguard the peace, but to do so with minimal forces. People commonly talk of a ratio of 1 to 10. Well, we could have 1 and they could have 10, but the fact that we're sitting on the high ground, on a level playing field, allows us, in fact, to protect Israel with minimal forces.
The 482 square miles of the Golan Heights comprise a very small area, 44 miles long, 15 miles wide. Small enough to fit into the state of Texas 553 times. Less than half the size of America's smallest state, Rhode Island. Each of the Golan's 3 sectors, north, center, and south, has its own strategic relevance. It is only 9 miles wide, but the southern sector is surrounded by natural obstacles impassable to modern armies. This sector is mostly flat,